the New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hey folks, greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain, and today we have Regan Murphy back on the show. How are you, Regan?
I'm great, thanks, Paul. Good to be back.
Yeah, look, it's been years. You were previously at Microsoft. You're now at Snowflake. I think you were at Microsoft last time we spoke, or were you at Snowflake?
No, I was at Microsoft.
You were still at Microsoft.
We were gearing up for one of the big Ignite conferences at the time.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe just a little intro to to folks on what you do, where you fit into the big wide world of tech in New Zealand.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm currently working for Snowflake. I'm a technical salesperson there. I came into Snowflake when Snowflake had a couple of customers in New Zealand, and with my colleague Tony and now many colleagues in Snowflake in New Zealand, we've expanded that footprint out. We've got a lot of customers using our cloud data platform now. So it's been a pretty exciting last few years.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, looking forward to hearing a little bit about what's happening within Snowflake later on during the show. But lots going on. We've got data breaches. We've got changes in the world of artificial intelligence from some interesting steps from Google through to what European Union are up to with regulation. Some quite fascinating science as well, which maybe is going to lead to, wooden screens on our next smartphone. Who knows what's coming, and a whole bunch more. But before we jump in, huge thank you to our show partners, to 1NZ, to 2 Degrees, Spark, HP, and Gorilla Technology. First up, a bit of a outage at Auckland Airport. Not an ideal situation when you've got people needing to come or go from the country and get stuck because technology systems are failing. So we heard over the weekend around Auckland Airport passengers basically dealing with, I guess you could say, more delays, because there have been varying sort of delays getting through Auckland Airport in recent times with the advanced passenger processing technology, where they had an outage. And so basically, what was supposed to be automated in terms of looking at people's passports and so on was all having to be done manually.
Yes, I don't know what went wrong there, and it wasn't just an Auckland Airport system, was it? So,
yeah, that's right.
But there are a lot of ways to cater and put redundancy in systems these days, especially with the cloud. Much easier to do that. So it's kind of a shame that things went down for such a long time when they shouldn't have to.
Yeah, at least they were able to keep going, and we don't know too much of the ins and outs and what they could improve, but certainly what you hope is that this sort of situation does lead to some rethinking.
Absolutely.
If they can deliver better results next time, especially I guess there's a range of scenarios, but especially for those who spend a fair bit of time traveling and are trying to get to or from families and the like. It's kind of, it wears you down getting caught in airports for too long, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've had a few delays myself lately. We had that problem there. We've had staff shortages from COVID. Was it yesterday that they had an air control fire, which meant that they ran air control from Christchurch instead? And that made me think, was it 3, 4, 5 years ago? There was a big outage in France because the air control went down, and it turned out they were still running on Windows 95 or Windows 3.11 or something, 40 years after they probably shouldn't be. So
outdated technology. Yeah. We have to stay on top of those things. Now talking about other technological problems, Nissan have experienced some dramas, and in fact, if you go to the Nissan.co.nz website today and to the Australian one as well, this is the statement that they released yesterday. We are aware that customers in Australia and New Zealand are having difficulties contacting us. We're currently working to restore our systems, and we will re-establish our customer support phone lines as soon as we can. We're continuing to investigate the cyber incident, and we will provide further updates as soon as possible. Interesting last line they add. We also want to reassure customers the outage will not adversely affect the credit rating of any of our Nissan Financial Services customers.
That's kind of concerning, really.
It's like, oh, it's interesting you have to touch on credit rating.
Well, yeah, it makes you wonder what information is actually leaked, if it has that potential. And we had an incident not long ago where people's passports and driver's license and things were leaked, which potentially could be used to assume an identity, get a credit card. Actually, probably not get a credit card because that's pretty damn hard these days. But you could use somebody's documents to impersonate them. So just a name and a phone number is probably not enough. So I wonder what else is part of that.
Yeah. But a tough situation, and when we look at these sorts of things, what it does for me is it brings into, and I know every organization is susceptible. Nobody can be perfect, but it's just that extra little bit of doubt that you then have around a particular entity and organization, and particularly in the world of vehicles and transport and so on, where more and more we're putting technology deep into our vehicles, and we're expecting vehicles to actually navigate for us. And I think of are you a Tesla driver?
No, I'm not a Tesla driver.
For some reason I thought you might be.
But I did order one, but then I unordered it.
Okay.
For whatever reasons.
Yep. I guess a lot in the tech world are, but one of the things I was noticing on Journey the other day was just how within Tesla they obviously keep a database, and it probably is in their cloud, to be fair, of some of your journey information. So when you jump in a vehicle, and now I'm moving between two different vehicles, you've got this cloud profile, but it's sort of remembering where you go at different times. And so even if you haven't favorited at a particular destination, it's like, oh, Tuesday afternoon at this time, oh, you're probably heading there, and it's in the list. And other times where it's pulling your destination out of an appointment that's in your calendar that you've chosen to give it access to. But more and more we're going to be expecting our data to be kept well looked after and kept private by auto companies. And so these sorts of things kind of like, if they can't keep these basic things right, then that becomes a problem. But it's not easy, and as you say, it's not just auto. I mean,
everybody has to do this,
so many people are getting more and more data on us, and so the impact of these things becomes bigger over time, doesn't it? Compared to probably data breaches sort of 5-10 years ago, there wasn't as much data.
Yeah, not as much data, but it also was hard to use it or spread it or do whatever else, especially with AI, where it could take that information. I was reading somebody the other day said that they could, using AI, scrape a whole lot of webs, stand up a new website, go and spam all of the search engines and hit number one in a matter of, minutes or hours now. So if it can do that just to put up a fake website, what can it do with personal information and so on?
Yes. So interesting times. So anyway, that's a bit of what's happening locally. But there are things going on, all the time on the global stage that, have some relevance to New Zealand as well. And we've been reading about the European Union regulations around artificial intelligence. And, we often end up delving into the role of legislation and law as to how it sort of crosses over with technology, helps and hinders and so on. And when you look at any technology, there's kind of good uses and bad uses. Be it,
absolutely,
as simple as our smartphones. Well, most of us are just using that as a very convenient tool to have in our pockets. But of course, criminals make use of those things too, right? And so it really is kind of across the board. But we do want to see legislation appropriately developed, and that's a topic that keeps coming up too, right? There's this sort of challenge that often that the legislation comes so far behind, and so it's like, well, do we move to some sort of legislative model that draws from the lessons of sort of tech and startup world, and that's fast moving and iterative, and
Well, it has to be, really.
things get broken along the way and mistakes made, but continuous improvement is applied, and it looks like what the European Union have been doing there is definitely a reasonably sort of quick response to what we've seen, compared to traditional sort of legislation where you don't see anything for years and years, right?
Yeah, well, they put something out there at least to start with. It might not be perfect yet, but as you said, continuously reviewing it and improving it is what's needed. And it's hard with a lot of technologies to where do you draw the line between really helpful and really creepy, if you're thinking about what it might know about you and what it can offer up. I mean, if I jump online and there's an ad that pops up in front of me, sometimes it's awesome because it's exactly what I'm looking for. Other times you're looking at it and thinking, well, what have I done that's made that pop up, and should I really be letting all these things know this? So yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They've sort of effectively what the BBC has reported is that European Union officials have come to a provisional kind of agreement on what's being called the world's first comprehensive legislation that will regulate the use of artificial intelligence, and there will be time until it actually is voted on and so on, and you've got UK, United States, China also all rushing to get legislation in place. But there is I think always a sort of flip side to, so whilst I sort of talk up that, hey, we've got to move at pace and so on, there's this sort of flip side of, well, when you do that, what are the unintended consequences? And as you and I were chatting about it before the show, it came to mind that I'd seen something come through on X from Edward Snowden. He got forwarded to me because I don't have too much time to keep a track on all these things. But what it was is and this seems to be a common thing in the United States with legislation, is a bill will go through with a particular purpose, and then they tag on these other bills and bits and pieces and changes at the same time, and it all just kind of gets pulled through, and the focus tends to be on the the main purpose of the legislation. And what was being highlighted by Snowden, who himself is based in Russia these days. He's
lost track actually.
would be I think would be maybe locked up for the rest of his life if he were in the US. So you have to consider he's someone who himself has broken laws as a whistleblower, but actually, I do find it interesting to follow some of the things coming through from characters like Snowden, Kim.com here in New Zealand. Yes, some of the things that they raise are like, where are you, mate? You're maybe on another planet and so on. But there are some interesting things, and the comment was on this legislation that is apparently getting about to get voted on will have quite a big impact on privacy in the US, potentially, and allow the
for the average consumer, is it?
Yeah, I think it creates a position where spying, by the government on actual people from within that country, not sort of the external stuff. So, and this is where Kim.com sort of came into the discussion, because here in New Zealand, of course, we had the spy agency GCSB, get in trouble. I think it was under John Key's government because they were spying on Kim.com as a whatever he was, a New Zealand resident or something, which isn't not what they're supposed to be doing, and so they broke the law doing that. And so this legislation, from the little bit that I read, that they're trying to pull through, will change it from whereby the likes of the NSA, instead of having to go to sort of like, just sort of some certain big players, or there's a category that they can go to
get approvals
to enable their spying to enable others to facilitate spying. And I think there's different levels of which it happens, and probably a lot of cases there's a level of transparency, but there are cases where they can go to presumably the big tech firms and say, look, you need to do this, and you can't tell anybody that you're doing it. But this new legislation means they can go to anybody that's kind of got anything to do with telecommunications. So could be an IT person that's configuring a router in somebody's home, and then the NSA can say, well, you're involved in this, so we need you to do X, Y, Z, install something or other on this router, or varying.
What about a dishwasher repairman coming in? IoT in the dishwasher these days.
Well, that's an interesting point, right? Like, the legislation doesn't necessarily think of that, but the NSA probably, if what I've read is accurate, and it's very, I couldn't see a lot of coverage on it online. But if it's accurate, then it suggests somebody who's involved in your technology that might be able to, see or hear, or or have access to the data that crosses in and out of a home.
But then I've got nothing to hide, so why would I care?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It's always quite that simple.
It's just like the EU AI thing. They're putting in all these controls around biometrics and using AI across public footage and things to identify people. I mean, if you're not a criminal, you've got nothing to worry about, unless maybe you get wrongly identified, the AI misclassifies you or something like that. Then you're in a bit of trouble. So it might apply to people, even though they think it might not.
Yeah, and I guess you have to look at countries where governments have taken more liberties than what we would be comfortable with, and then what does that look like? And I was reading around North Korea in the last few days, and somebody that simply just wants to get a bit of a feel for I guess life outside North Korea, and watching a TV series from South Korea, if you're found to have that on a USB, or you're caught, or somebody in your neighborhood that you swapped a bit of content with, or whatever dobs you in, then you get locked up for years, or off to prison camp, or whatever it is. It was truly kind of horrifying. The things that obviously are norm for us in the West are at this point a million miles away from what they are everywhere else. But it's like, realizing, well, at some point they somehow transitioned into these sort of scenarios, and
seems
we
hope crazy
hope that none of that stuff will ever happen in New Zealand. But when you read that stuff, it's like, oh, okay. But it certainly, if nothing else, hopefully gives us a bit of empathy for for those that do come under these sort of laws, and that level of control.
So is the UK part of the EU signatory on this AI piece?
From what I've read, it sounds like the United Kingdom are doing their own separate work. But they might well draw on it, right? But of course, it's a whole new world now that the Brexit's kind of happened. They have to do their own.
Well, I'm thinking, because they're talking about the biometric and scanning footage and stuff, and I quite often hear that the UK has got the most CCTV per capita of any Western place. So are they signing up for this? Or how are they using their cameras?
Yeah.
There was a
Well, yeah,
big rigmarole here when the police ran a trial on some CCTV stuff. It didn't go down well.
no, well, and there is a lot of, there's obviously, just slowly and slowly more and more cameras, and the UK is, I don't know where they are after China, but it looks like they're all, London's almost, a copycat of some parts of China in terms of how many cameras they've
Coverage
got.
wise, yeah.
And yeah, certainly when I wander around, particularly in a city, more highly populated parts of New Zealand, the amount of cameras is kind of eye watering, and you don't necessarily know, well, what's happening with that data and what's the whole picture. So
Oh yeah, I pressed the button on a Ring camera to get into the studio today.
We got you.
Got me well and truly got. Down the old suburban streets are probably like that too these days.
I'm sure we could do something with that biometrics, and then grab your phone when you're not looking, and Face ID into it. And
I know the Ring stuff. I remember seeing a setting. If you're in the States, there's a setting to join some neighborhood security thing, which feeds into the police network somewhere as well.
Yeah, I think they got into a spot of bother with that at one point, because maybe they were auto enrolling people and giving police a bit too much data and so on. So I don't know where that stuff has landed, but yeah, all of these things are worth at least keeping our eye on from time to time, right? So,
absolutely.
Now we okay, yeah, we delved a bit into Snowden. Google's video for Gemini last week, when that came out, you saw it, I saw it. One of the team sort of showed it to me. It was like, this is incredible. Look how fast it is. Look at the just mind-blowing responses.
There's a whole nother step forward, right?
And it was like, wow, this is such an incredible, step forward. And, and he was kind of asking, well, what do you think about it? And I was like, well, because Google were, really, they're putting some data out, say, look, these are our numbers. We're way better than OpenAI's GPT-4 in most areas. Yeah, we don't quite beat it in every area, but look how good we are. And and the demo was amazing. And I sort of made the comment like, kind of looks to me like what they've done in this demo video. Like, you could probably use the GPT-4 APIs to actually program something up that would take frames out of a video every few seconds, and then that would kind of be the input, and that could come together into some sort of a conversation, and then you just get it to voice it back to you. It doesn't seem that hard, right?
Yeah.
He was like, no, this is amazing. And then anyway, I did an interview for Sky News. I think they're based in Sydney. Over Zoom around it, and they had me and I think one or two other people sort of contributing to the story around Gemini, and it wasn't until the next morning, I think, they pinged me the video from it had been on their, I think, on their breakfast news. Maybe it was Thursday morning Sky.
Yeah.
Breakfast news or whatever they call their morning news, and it was like, oh, okay. And then I saw the stuff starting to come through on X or somewhere online. I think X is probably where I saw it first. Was, oh, the video was faked. I was like, what? You got to be kidding! And apparently, Google had been semi-transparent, and that they made a statement somewhere to sort of say that it was kind of contrived, but it wasn't clear when you watched the video that you weren't watching something that was real. It had been edited together to look like it was real.
Yeah.
And
marketing spin.
We've seen those sorts of things before. In fact, you mentioned before the show, like, oh, if you go back 10 years, there's probably a similar video of Microsoft showing off some artificial intelligence stuff. But we kind of knew that was was a futurist view that
Yeah.
that was what we, Microsoft might expect to be around in a decade or so, right? Whereas this was kind of like, this is our new thing that we're showing off, and there wasn't a kind of a big thing saying, oh, we kind of edited this together out of. And then when you read it, it was like, oh yeah, we did take the stills. It was pretty much not far off my suggestion of how you put it together. Of like, oh, that's really cheeky.
To be fair, they actually got the answers and they did it. They just didn't go about it the way they did. So it wasn't an easy talk to a video. It just happens that there was somebody typing in the background, I guess. But it's not far of a leap, I guess, to actually get to that stage. But it's just a bit disappointing.
yeah. And for those that haven't seen it, it's worth having a look. And it might be a taste of what's actually possible with somebody spending a day or a week, just coding something, because it doesn't look like sort of rocket science to some degree, but the use of generative AI kind of looking at the imagery and then interpreting that is pretty sort of standard fare today. But the way it was strung together did make it look like the sort of like the next thing after the chat interface that is really what made OpenAI famous, because
and accessible too, right?
To everyone, because it was available. People were programming it and using it before ChatGPT came out, but as soon as they made that chat interface, that sort of transformed things.
It put it in the hands of the everyday person, right? I mean, there's many people I know that are using ChatGPT to help them with their jobs, do things, copywriting, so on, and it's really easy to do. You don't have to have a tech degree to figure it out.
Yep, and I mean, I'll use it if I'm driving in a car now that you can use sort of voice input and so on. That's not quite as slick as it could be, but it's it's pretty close. I've maybe been in a meeting while I'm in the car or a call, and I need to fill in a little sort of data before my next thing. It's like, rather than have to wait and sit down and browse the web and so on, you just ask ChatGPT to figure something out while you're getting from A to B. It's pretty handy.
The thing I really love about that kind of technology is you can ask it might not get it quite right, but then you can kind of continue asking to get towards the answer that you're looking for. So you don't have to take the first thing that comes back. You can give it some more context and get it closer to the correct answer, which is something that we haven't really been able to do before.
So there's more coming around Gemini. I mean, haven't actually played with it yet and so on. So I'll just say that I've agreed to an NDA with Google on something, but for all I know, it's something very minor that means nothing. But I'm sure we can expect there to be iteration anyway. So we will see what else I can find out from Google over the next little while. Now, one other topic before we hear from you, a little bit on what's happening in the world of Snowflake, was there's some coverage online around scientists making transparent wood. And I just thought this is was quite fascinating. Actually, I saw an article. I think it was maybe it was last week. Around it was a leaf that was completely see through, and when if you leave a leaf outside and it sort of slowly deteriorates, and you can kind of see the skeleton of it, and see through it. But this was just a leaf that and I can't remember what the process was, but it basically taken all of the color out, so it was just a leaf that you could see through, like a bit of glass or see through plastic. And the particular coverage on the see through wood, which is in Ars Technica, was delving into why scientists are making transparent wood. And it seems like some of these ideas have been around for sort of 30 odd years, right? So not new, but just kind of, I don't know, triggered all sorts of thoughts. What sort of jumped out for you?
The very first thing that jumped out for me was why. I mean, why transparent wood? We've got glass, we've got plastic, we've got all these other transparent things.
Yeah.
Why do we need wood?
Mm.
But digging in a little bit deeper, one of the things is the renewability. Is it going to be better for the environment? Hopefully so. But then when you think about wood versus glass and plastic, the state in the article that wood has better insulating properties and energy efficiency. So if we can make our windows out of wood that you can see through, then maybe your house is going to burn less energy. So it sounds like maybe it is a good thing. But as I said, the first thing I thought was why.
But and looking at the image that was in that article, it didn't look as sort of transparent as glass, but certainly it sort of triggers all sorts of thoughts. Where can it go? That the home scenario is a good one, but is it something that becomes part of our gadgets? And then it's like, well, if you can have a wooden screen, for instance, or whatever it is, I don't know if your cameras can be behind a bit of wood, and what else can be to be made that's actually going to deteriorate better and so on, and does that sort of simplify how we recycle devices and so on in the future? And I'm not sure that might be completely silly and ridiculous.
Let it say smart windows out of wood, right? So in that case, I think they mentioned just making them turn purple or something like the Dreamliner windows do on a plane. But maybe instead of installing a TV screen or something, maybe your whole wall could be a TV screen one day.
There you go.
Even though we tend to watch so much stuff on our mobiles these days, so they seem to be shrinking, not expanding. But sounds cool.
So I mean, all sorts of possibilities, and we've seen. I think it was BMW have done a few of the demos of where they're using e-ink on the exterior of some vehicles, and started out with black and white. That looked pretty cool, and then they started to go with some color panel, color options, so you can actually then change the design and the whole look of a vehicle.
Maybe the wood panel station wagon's going to come back into fashion.
So who knows? All sorts of things are possible, right? But really, really fascinating anyway, just to see some of these advances and changes with science and technology. Time to delve a little bit into what's happening in the world of Snowflake. Maybe to start with, what does Snowflake do, and who are the sorts of people that are that are using your technology?
So Snowflake is a data cloud. We are a data platform where you can store structured, semi-structured JSON, XML, and unstructured PDFs and Word documents. You can put it all into one place, and then you can run analytics or machine learning or Gen AI against the data that's stored there. We're across multiple clouds, so we're on Azure, we're on AWS, we're on Google Cloud. If you're using Snowflake, it's the same on all of those cloud vendors. So you can be on one, or you can be on both. You can be on all three if you like, which is kind of nice in this area where you don't have to be aligned to one cloud vendor. You can pick something that goes across a lot of them. But essentially, it's around storing the data, but storing it securely, which is very important these days, especially when you talk about the leaks of data and so on. So storing it securely, but then making it able to be used for things like AI and Gen AI, deep analytics, and so on as well.
And so, I guess the vendors like Microsoft and AWS and so on, they're all sort of playing in these sorts of areas. What have been the sort of things that have really drawn people to Snowflake specifically?
So, Snowflake started, must be 12, 13, 14 years ago now. The founders came out of Oracle. They were kind of deep in the bowels of performance tuning. It was kind of when AWS Cloud was kicking off. And they looked at it and they thought, this cloud, we have a chance to use the elasticity of the cloud. So unlimited compute, unlimited storage. So how do we build something that can just be cloud native that can take advantage of that? So they figured that we can't take a product that's running on tin in your premises and then put it in the cloud, because it just won't scale. So they went to the drawing boards. They built something from scratch, and it natively uses the way the cloud is built. So you can load as much data in you like, you can use as much compute as you like, and you can scale from little tiny workloads like somebody in New Zealand can, up to the really, really big organizations across the world in one platform, and you can do it easily. And then, of course, because you can do it on any of the clouds, because they've got a similar sort of makeup, that makes it really flexible too.
Yeah, that's pretty helpful. And so in New Zealand, you were mentioning to me that you had an event, a sort of conference type thing. When was that? How recently was that? You mentioned there were like 1,000 people there.
Yeah, so
it's a big event.
It's a big event, yeah. So 4 or 5 years ago, there were only a couple of organisations using Snowflake in New Zealand. So yeah, we had an event at the Pullman in September, part of our Data Cloud World Tour. New Zealand was really lucky. We got a stop on that tour event twice now, 2 years in a row. Last year we had about 600, 700, 800 people at it. This year, even more again, which is huge for a data and analytics event for a single vendor. But it just kind of shows the scale of people that are involved in data and analytics in New Zealand, and also in the Snowflake side of that as well.
Yeah. And so when you look at that kind of that group of people that are leveraging and utilizing your technology, are there particular things that sort of stand out around those that are your customers here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got customers in all the different segments, from small primary producers through to big tech companies, banking and insurance and healthcare institutions, all across the scope there. The platform itself works really well in all of those industries. But at the conference, we had representatives from all of those industries there. And they're all doing different things. Some of them, it's just about, we want to put our data warehouse in the cloud. Others are, we've built our data foundations. Now we want to start doing, some really smart stuff. So, use machine learning to extract insights from that data, or, now starting to use Gen AI to figure out better ways to use their data or to serve their customers and so on.
So, looking at the different use cases and the things that you see from talking to customers, from those that are at the cutting edge to those that are maybe a fair way behind the eight ball. What would you say kind of the biggest learnings and sort of biggest opportunities for organizations to do better in terms of taking advantage of the data maybe that they're collecting today, as well as the broader data sets that they might have access to?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things about collecting data is that you continue to collect it, and it grows bigger and bigger the more you do, especially with IoT and technologies. Not all data is going to be valuable, but there's a lot of really valuable data in there. And in the old days, it was just about getting your sales and doing profit and loss reports. Of more recent years, it's taking logs from your customer contact center and figuring out what the sentiment is across what the wait times are for queues, and then optimizing the customer experience there. Or if you're a retailer, how do we predict the demand for a product before it happens, so that we make sure we've got enough supply of that in our store for when it's about to happen. And you can't just go on what happened last year. You've got to think about things like weather, events that are going on, where people are going with what's interesting to them, and they all influence buying decisions. So there's a lot you can do with data to figure out these things, and going from balance sheets to make sure I've got enough coffee in my store here, because there's a marathon and there's a sports event and everything else. So there's now 30,000 more people in this area right now. We want to make sure that we've got staff and stock and everything to cater for that.
Yeah, so I guess there's that opportunity probably for every single organisation to be just getting smarter about where they leverage data, and that they're really tapping into things in a way that helps their customers, helps them, and everybody wins when you get this stuff right. On the flip side, if you don't get it right, you don't secure it well, then
Well, yeah.
that creates all of its own sorts of challenges and pain, right?
And that's where a platform like Snowflake comes in. One of our core focuses on security. You can't turn security off on the platform. We've got we've announced a brand name around our security, and governance, which is Horizon. But you can secure things down to columns and rows of data. You can create nice rules to say these people here can see this, but they can't see driver's licenses or date of births because they don't need to. So it means that you can start giving access to your people to the data, but protect the data that they don't need to see using the rules that you can build inside the platform. So whereas in the past it's just like all or nothing, now you can start to actually safely surface that data within your organization without surfacing too much.
Yeah. So important. That's great. Anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up, Regan? Anything we missed?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that most of our customers on Snowflake see is the cloud gives them the ability to store the data that they might not have kept before, because cloud storage is really, really cheap. And because with Snowflake, you can keep the storage costs separate from the compute costs. You can load as much data as you like, and if you're not doing anything with that data, it's only costing you the cheap cloud storage. And then just because you've got that scalability of the cloud, you can process all that data, really, really fast. You can throw Gen AI on it. You can do things like that a lot more easily with the cloud. And these days, cloud being consumption based, if you want to do something, you can spin something up, run it, and then turn it off, and you can experiment, which is really cool. You couldn't really do that when you had things running on-prem in the past.
Yeah, and look, it's so important that we encourage that sort of experimentation, right? With technology and with sort of the possibilities, and so whatever we can do that makes that easier, that becomes super helpful.
And one other thing is, we're talking about Gen AI, we're talking about Gemini, we're talking about all those sort of things. ChatGPT made it really accessible for the average user to go in and ask questions, get results back. That's a public-facing model. You don't generally want to, have your business users put their, proprietary data into a public-facing model for, because it's potentially going to train that model, and you could have your data leak out. So these days, organizations are wanting to do that, but they're wanting to do it securely. So that's where putting your data inside of something like Snowflake, where everything is secured, you can control where that data sits and where it goes. Hooking that into either the likes of an OpenAI, where you've got a service which keeps your data secure and you can tap out into. Or whether you start to use some of the functions that Snowflake's building in for that Gen AI, where you absolutely know it's not going to leave your place. That then gives the companies, the organizations, the confidence that their data is not going to leak off and train somebody else's model.
Yeah, I think it's important that organizations, keep moving forward on this, because with access to, an increasing number of generative AI, tools and technologies, then if there's not something being, formally offered, then potentially people are taking data that you don't want to be going outside of the organization and dropping them into varying inappropriate sort of locations and repositories. So it's key to front foot these things as much as you can.
And the AI is only really as good as the data that they're trained on, but you don't want your data training than AI that your competitors have got access to. So being able to bring these models, being able to fine tune them with your own data and do so securely is of utmost importance. And that's kind of front of what we're working on at Snowflake.
That's great. Well, really good to catch up, Regan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If anyone wants to connect, what's the best way to get in touch?
As you said, X is one of those ways, so people can hit me up on X. They can also just hit me up directly. Look for me on LinkedIn, Regan Snowflake. It's pretty easy to find me. If you search for Regan Murphy, you might find Eddie Murphy comes up though.
Okay.
Funnily enough, his middle name's Regan. So.
Oh, that's funny. I did
No,
not
that's
know
not me.
that. Okay, so a bit of a sidetrack angle you can take while you're searching online, a bit of entertainment.
Absolutely. So I'd hate
that's good.
to think what comes out of a Gen AI if you ask for a picture of Regan Murphy. Might not be me.
We could try some experiments. They might not be pretty. No, that's good. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks everyone for listening in. Of course, a big thank you to our show partners, to Gorilla Technology, 1NZ, HP, Spark, and 2 Degrees. And if you've been watching the live stream online, then of course you can find us and follow through whatever your favorite audio app is, the likes of Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, most of our listeners, then well worth following. So you do catch the live streams as they happen as well. You can follow myself, Paul Spain, on LinkedIn for those. Also across on YouTube, Facebook, and X. All right, thanks everyone. We'll catch you next week. See ya.
Thanks.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.